Hi, class. We are beginning week 9, and this week we finally get to use this book, which is the Adults Therapy Treatment Planner. I don't know if you have used this before. Um, they're in all different types of topics. I know even for my other course that I'm teaching, family therapy too, we are using a treatment planner book. These are handy for, I think, when you're not sure what to do with the client or you need some ideas or potentially some feedback. There might be some different things in here that would give you help in knowing what to do with specific clientele, whether it be a family, a child, something to do with addiction. This one specifically is for older adults. So they are a nice resource to have. It's not something necessarily you have to feel like you need to live by, but they are definitely helpful and a great resource. I will say this though, something to be mindful of is it's basing things off of the DSM-4, and the DSM has changed. So how we kind of do the whole diagnosis write up is different now. Um, so just to keep that in mind or not to be alarmed. Um, so this week we were covering the first 30 pages of this text. And it's exciting to get in here to kind of get to the nitty gritty of what to do with some aging adults. The first few pages were just an introduction, and I'm looking at the book myself. And if you haven't, you use the book. It gives you examples of how to treatment plan. And the importance of the treatment plan, again, is to have a plan and to be kind of prepared with clients depending on where you decide to do supervision. Different sites may require, sorry, all the moving with my screen right now. Different sites may require you to have a treatment plan. Um, and so something like this, like I said, could be helpful. Otherwise, it could just be used as a resource and to give you some maybe insight on different things you don't necessarily feel very confident on. But there are samples of how to use this and use it effectively. So the first topic that we go over in the book is activities of daily living. And again, it shows you different behavioral definitions of someone who fits into this criteria. So, this is the decline in maybe some of the basic things that a person was used to doing and can't be doing anymore. So as a clinician, you're looking for maybe potentially long-term goals, and this gives you an idea of what some long-term goals could be. So again, if you're realizing a client is having this difficulty, maybe you found out from the initial phone call that this is something that's going on for a client, and you wanted to look some things up, this would give you ideas of long-term goals. Like, for example, adapt to current expected level of functioning, maximize capacity for independent functioning, resolve depression, anxiety that may be interfering with motivation to recover function. So this gives you some ideas, but you want to be mindful too. You want to clearly do what your client wants to do. So you can come up with all the goals and objectives you want, but if your client is not on the same page with you, then it's kind of pointless. So keep that in mind. Again, a great resource, something to use. It'll be great for you to have some information to maybe present to a client, like how would this goal work for you? But again, if your client's not into it, you can't force it upon them. The main intervention here, well, there's a bunch of interventions, but you know, a lot of this particular treatment plan involves the additional family or finding out who the support is. And that's so important with this particular problem of a decline of everyday functioning, because the client potentially is going to need some help. And that is something that we've covered in the last few chapters, especially with retirement and things changing and maybe a decline in health. That clients need a support network. So a lot of these interventions involve like getting other family members involved, at least getting authorizations to speak to other people, getting perspectives from other people, which when we're looking at an aging adult, not to put them in the same category as a minor, but you're looking at some potential similar situations where they need more care. And you want to make sure as a clinician that they're getting the care that they need and that they have the support they need to get that care. And you don't want to be liable for anything. And so and that's where it's important for some of these things to be addressed. So I really appreciate they give those interventions. Um, a lot of these interventions too are regarded to seeing additional references like seeing a doctor for other diseases. Like for example, right now with where I see where I have trainees who are seeing clients. There's a student there who has Parkinson's disease and is has just had a potential diagnosis of that, and so that kind of changes everything he's doing in this potential Job Corps program because now he can't potentially work the way he thought he was going to be able to work, and so now a whole new set of parameters needs to be put up for him, and a transition needs to be put up for him because he's not going to be able to do what he originally thought he was going to be able to do. So that's going to involve a lot of change. So for any person who maybe is realizing that now they have a long-term illness that is not curable, they need to get prepared for that, and that requires figuring out what the support network system is, and if there is no support system, like what are your resources, and that's where knowing some of the community resources as far as social workers. Um, Trying to get the person connected to maybe other facilities, maybe helping them decide on maybe some financial options, what they need to get prepared for if it comes to a place where they cannot live independently or live on their own, or needing extra care and them determining or coming to terms with that fact. Which again, in this section, it talks about one of the potential goals would be dealing with anxiety and depression. And so you could be a really huge factor in reducing some of those things and helping them make choices. Because often and this is for any client, when you feel very anxious or if you're feeling depressed, you feel very stuck and you can be very stagnant. And that's not going to help a person in this situation who may need to make some changes quite quickly or make some decisions quite quickly. Um, so that's the first particular particular issue that is looked at in this chapter in after the introduction. The next one, which I know in different discussion boards we've talked about quite a bit, is anxiety. And again, some of the clear symptoms of anxiety: excessive fear and worry about life and health and circumstances, inability to control worries about health, family members, fear, worry, and other symptoms cause social withdrawal. And I've said kind of, I mean, I'm not necessarily joking, I'm partially serious, but I feel like anxiety is almost a predisposition of aging depending on how prepared the person is for aging. I've seen countless times where older people, the more time they have on their hands, um, the more they have to worry about. And as a result, there's an excess of anxiety. A person may have already been an anxious or worrisome person in their youth, and now you add on the fears of getting older, you add on the fears of everyone else in your family, worrying about how they're doing, what they're doing, and extra time maybe on your hands, and you're looking at a potential general anxiety disorder. And so, as a therapist, again, you want to look for potential goals. So here are some long-term goals for you as well as short-term objectives. And objectives are meant to be a way of measuring your effectiveness. Again, another alliance here is with a physician. I think especially in this population and as a clinician in general, I always want to rule out medical. So if I have clients who again are starting to show symptoms of something that they've never experienced before, I always suggest they go get a physical and get blood work done just to make sure nothing else is going on. And with the aging population, you never want to rule out medical. You always want to get that addressed because you never know what's going on. And you want to make sure that we're not ignoring something that needs to be addressed. Um, so again, a lot of CBT type stuff here with some of the interventions. Um, Trying to find out all the information, any medical conditions they have, um, the necessity of consulting a doctor. Some older people, that one of the things that they're anxious about is going to the doctor. They're afraid of maybe a diagnosis of something, saying that there's something wrong with them, and so they're anxious about that. So getting even a client, an aging adult potentially into the doctor could be quite huge. Um, let's see here, review what the physician has to say, teach the client the anxiety symptoms, try to teach them probably some CBT skills, um, help the client to identify whether he or she and how each symptom interferes with daily functioning. So again, allowing them to realize how this is affecting their life. Doing a thought log, help the client determine which situations, events, and people can be constructively avoided. So if there are people in their life that contribute to their anxiety, how can you help them work through that and develop some boundaries? Help the client determine which situation, events, and people can be assertively changed to alleviate anxiety. Um, Assist the client in identifying the most effective personal stress management techniques. So again, helping them develop some of those techniques as well as which ones work best. So you might do a lot of things that, and that's part of, being a therapist. What works for one client isn't going to work for another client. So you might be able to find some things that work really well for your clients, and then you may be able to find some things that don't work so well. And so being able to see what's a good fit, what works, and then keep working at something until you find what works well for them. Um, Help the client develop a plan of action for specific anxiety situations. So, if maybe now going to the grocery store is extremely overwhelming for them, maybe you can do some sort of, a desensitization of that. Maybe we could figure out ways the store could be a better experience for them. I know of some clients who have been extremely worried about their financial future, especially if they were growing up during the Great Depression. So helping them, find someone that is dealing with their finances that they trust, being able to show them how to look at their finances, and making knowledge is power. So the more you know, the more it may be able to help you. But again, um, this book is a great way of finding ideas and then you applying it to your own treatment plan, or potentially just going and picking things that you think would be great and having the client potentially buy into these things. Um, I'm really excited to see what some of your presentations will be on these certain topics. I think it will be um, interesting to see what you find and what journal articles you find to go alongside it. So these next few weeks, we're just going to be kind of going over some of these topics. If you have further questions about these topics, please don't hesitate to ask me. I would love to be able to help you. Um, but I think again, what you learn, and what one thing I have learned, and I hope, and I don't mean this to sound negative, but with anything, you're going to find what works for you and you're going to find what doesn't work for you. And so I think with this book in particular, and just with anything, you're going to see, you know what, I'm going to use this, it's going to be helpful, and this is going to work for this client, and it may not work for another client, and that's okay. There's no cookie cutter perfect way to do counseling. You have to be willing to be flexible and change. So we'll just continue on this path and continue reviewing these topics. We're at week 9 now, so we're at the halfway point. Just as a reminder, last week I posted about grades. So please be mindful and be checking your scores, and be checking in at where you're at. We're now beyond the halfway point, and as of week 8, I have had everything graded that I've received. So again, I look forward to hearing your feedback on discussion board this week, and we will be talking soon. Thank you so much. Have a good week.